Cameras are an everyday part of modern life, and no longer are they bulky and obvious pieces of professional equipment. Now they are in our pockets, on our street corners, and even in our glasses and watches. Of course, cameras are useful for recording crimes and can be crucial evidence in catching perpetrators. In today's episode, we'll be taking a look at a few such instances as we examine 3 cases where criminals didn't realize they were being filmed. Delvin Barnes. On the evening of November 2nd, 2014, 22-year-old nursing aide Karlesha Freeland Gaither was grabbed by a man as she walked along Green Street in Philadelphia. The intense struggle between Karlesha and her attacker was captured on CCTV as she tried to fight back and get away. However, she was unable to break free and was thrown into the back of the man's vehicle. She subsequently smashed one of the back windows with a hammer found in the vehicle, and though she tried to attack the man who'd taken her, he was able to subdue her. Before he could drive away, however, Karlesha was able to leave her glasses and mobile phone on the sidewalk. Investigators would later describe Karlesha as an intelligent girl for leaving clues behind that helped them identify their victim. A man nearby witnessed the attack and called the police, which helped to quickly launch an investigation. Though police in Philadelphia were unfamiliar with the man who snatched Karlesha off the street, they circulated the CCTV footage of him and were soon contacted by Virginia investigators, who recognized him immediately. They identified the man as 37-year-old Delvin Barnes, whom they had been looking for in connection with the rape, torture, and attempted murder of a 16-year-old girl. Now, with a face and a name, detectives used the CCTV footage to examine Barnes' getaway vehicle. They were able to read the name of the dealership the car came from, and subsequently got in contact with the Virginia-based business. The dealership activated a GPS they had installed on the vehicle in the case that Barnes defaulted on his loan. Meanwhile, in Aberdeen, Maryland, Karlesha gave Barnes the PIN number for her debit card, letting investigators know where the pair were. Detectives subsequently cross-checked with the CCTV in the area and released footage of Barnes. Shortly afterwards, a witness reported seeing him at a grocery store in Aberdeen. Now, with the GPS activated, investigators tracked Barnes to Jessup, Maryland, where he was taken into custody, and Karlesha was returned home to her family, just 3 days after she was taken. Investigators believed that in the week before he snatched Karlesha off the street, Barnes had been involved in a robbery. Once in custody, he was charged with rape and attempted murder in Virginia, and with kidnapping and other charges in Philadelphia. He ultimately pled guilty to the latter charges, telling the court, "It was an act of desperation. I can't make sense of it. I grabbed the wrong person, actually. I needed money to get back to Virginia to see my daughter one more time before I turned myself in." Barnes has a lengthy criminal record. In 2005, he was charged with rape, burglary, aggravated assault, making terroristic threats, and reckless endangerment. Furthermore, he was known to have beaten, sexually assaulted, and held his estranged wife captive, all while defying a protection order. This woman is the mother of the daughter he allegedly wanted to see when he kidnapped Karlesha. In 2016, Barnes was sentenced to 35 years in prison in regards to Karlesha's case. The Virginia charges against him have reportedly been set aside for now. He is currently in prison in California and has a possible release date of 2044. Juan Covington. Born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on March 3, 1962, Juan Covington is a serial killer responsible for 3 fatal and 2 non-fatal shootings. Operating in the late 90s and early noughties, Covington was seen as an ordinary man who was quiet, but according to neighbors, easily offended. By all accounts, he was seen as an upstanding citizen. He He was employed as a bus driver for almost 2 decades before changing careers and becoming a medical waste disposer for local hospitals. Covington's first known victim was 49-year-old Reverend Thomas Lee Devlin, a Baptist pastor. Covington, 36 at the time, walked into the Reverend's church on Old York Road on August 19, 1998, and shot him 11 times. Covington's alleged motive for this attack was that he believed Thomas had been using witchcraft on him to make him ill. Though he was responsible for the 49-year-old's death, Covington accompanied his family to the funeral and appeared to mourn alongside them. Though he knew the Reverend, he was not seen as a suspect at this time. After the slaying of Thomas Devlin, Covington appeared to lie low. It wasn't until 2003 that he re-emerged to continue his life of crime. On May 20th, he crossed paths with David Stewart, a 41-year-old man, in the area of Logan. Covington subsequently pulled out a 9mm pistol and shot David 9 times. The motive behind the attack is unknown. David survived the assault but was left paralyzed from the waist down and relied on crutches for the rest of his life. Then, just under a year later, on April 26, 2004, Covington came across William Bryant Jr. on West Ruscombe Street. With no warning, no motive, and no provocation, he pulled a gun on the 32-year-old and shot him 9 times. While the attack was not fatal, William was left with disabilities and had issues with his speech afterwards. Following this assault, Covington once more seemed to disappear. It wasn't until March 7, 2005 that he found his next victim, a 36-year-old Revenue Department clerk named Odys Boskett, who was on his way to collect his daughter from nursery when he was shot to death. Covington's final murder took place on May 17, 2005. Patricia Trish McDermott was a radiographer at Pennsylvania Hospital and a well-respected member of her community. While on her way to work in the early hours of May 17th, however, she was shot dead and found a short time later by a passerby. Law enforcement was promptly dispatched to the scene, determining that she'd been killed with a .380 pistol, but officers were baffled by the lack of motive. She hadn't been robbed or sexually assaulted, and they struggled to figure out why someone would kill her in cold blood in the middle of the street. Authorities soon began collecting and scouring footage from nearby CCTV cameras, where they found a video of Trish exiting the bus earlier that morning, oblivious to the fact she was being followed by a man in a baseball cap. Investigators determined that the man wore a light-colored jacket and green trousers, but were unable to get a clear image of his face. In the video, he can be seen producing a gun from his pocket and shooting Trish once in the head. After combing through further CCTV, authorities found the man on another recording. This video showed him running across a car park, and it allowed them to map out the route he took to escape the crime scene. When the FBI were unable to clarify the images any further, investigators decided to release the CCTV footage to the public in the hopes that someone would recognize the man in the baseball cap. Hundreds of tips soon spilled in, with detectives examining each and every one, and it was here that they were finally able to put a name to the face of the man on CCTV, Juan Covington. His name was put forward by a bus company employee who recognized him. When law enforcement inspected the CCTV footage at Pennsylvania Hospital, where he worked, they found him to be wearing the same clothing that Trish's killer wore. Covington was quickly arrested and brought in for questioning, where he freely admitted to being responsible for Trish's murder. He claimed that she was poisoning him with X-rays and decided to kill her because he knew he wouldn't be believed if he told anyone. Not only did Covington admit to being responsible for Trish's death, but he also confessed to the killings of Thomas Devlin and Odys Boskett and the shooting of David Stewart and William Bryant Jr. Some of these admissions came as a surprise to investigators, as a man had already been arrested and tried for Odys' murder, and another had been apprehended for William's assault. Both men were subsequently released from detention following the arrest of Covington. Covington was spared the death penalty after he was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, and it was noted that he had been dealing with mental health issues from a young age. He was convicted of 3 counts of murder and 2 counts of attempted murder, and ultimately sentenced to 3 life terms without parole, plus 20 to 40 years for the 2 attempted murders. He is currently serving his sentence in a Pennsylvania prison, State Correctional Institution, Rockview. Though he was only found guilty of 3 murders, Covington is thought to be linked to 2 other cases. In 1997, Brenwanda Smith, 24, vanished from Philadelphia. She was last seen at 7 p.m. at the Luzerne Depot near Old York Road after telling colleagues that she was waiting for a lift home. Brenwanda reportedly knew Covington through her work as a bus driver, as they shared the same employer, and had turned him down after he asked her out. Similarly, 25-year-old Ann Yulee was a hospital worker found shot dead on 9th Street and Gerard Avenue on May 7, 2004. Though authorities have stated there is no evidence linking Covington to Brenwanda's case, he is considered a potential suspect in Ann's. He has not been charged, however, in connection with either case. Levi Aron. 8-year-old Yehuda Kletzy was last seen on the afternoon of Monday, July 11, 2011. He vanished while walking home from school in Brooklyn, New York. Though he normally took the school bus, on this particular day, Kletzy begged to be allowed to walk home, and his parents relented. His mother waited for him at a specific point on the route, just a few blocks from his school. But unfortunately, despite Kletzy having practiced the route home with his parents on several occasions, he took a wrong turn and became lost, ultimately heading in the opposite direction from his home. He was reported missing at 6:14 p.m. when his parents contacted the Brooklyn South Shom Rim Volunteer Civilian Patrol. The patrol began searching for the 8-year-old, checking out local shops and the homes of friends and relatives in case he had simply wandered off somewhere and failed to tell his parents. But by 8:30 p.m., no trace of him was found, and the patrol called the NYPD, who subsequently began their own hunt for the missing boy, utilizing canine units, mounted police, and helicopters. In the following hours, volunteers were roped in to aid in the search, and 5,000 Orthodox Jewish volunteers began to look, block by block, for the missing boy. An initial reward of $5,000 was offered for his safe return, and members of the community soon upped this to $100,000. Little came of the search carried out immediately following the disappearance. In fact, it wasn't until a community member named Yaakov German and his son began combing through CCTV footage from the area that a break in the case came. The surveillance footage revealed that on the afternoon of July 11th, Kletzy got lost after taking a wrong turn. It showed him walking along 44th Street and eventually 18th Avenue, where he spoke to a man who afterwards crossed the street and entered a dentist's office. When the man came out, he and the boy walked over to his vehicle and entered it. Yaakov immediately showed the police this evidence, and they tracked down the man who'd been in the dentist's office to settle his bill. The suspect's name was Levi Aron. At around 2 a.m. on Wednesday morning, less than 2 days after the disappearance, the police confronted Aron at his apartment in Kensington. When asked where the boy was, Aron gestured in the direction of the kitchen. Inside the room was a scene straight out of a horror movie. Blood-stained towels and blood-soaked knives were littered across the countertops, and inside the freezer were the missing child's severed feet. The rest of his remains, Aron told investigators, would be located in a red suitcase he'd thrown into a dumpster on 20th Street. He was subsequently taken into custody. Aron wrote a 450-word statement in which he confessed to the murder. He explained that Kletzy had asked him for directions, and so he'd offered the 8-year-old a lift. Not knowing any better, the child accepted and asked to be dropped off at his favorite bookstore. Bizarrely, Aron then suggested they drive to a wedding in Monsey, Rockland County, New York. The pair returned at around 11:20 p.m., and while Aron stated that he was going to take the boy home the next day, he panicked when he saw the missing posters. He subsequently murdered the 8-year-old by smothering him with a towel in his apartment. Afterwards, he dismembered the body, stuffed it into bags, put the bags in a suitcase, and tossed the case into a dumpster. It's unclear why his feet were kept in Aron's freezer. CCTV footage confirmed that Aron had attended a wedding in Rockland County, though Kletzy was never seen on camera. He was seen briefly, however, at 8:15 p.m. when Aron stopped at a parkway for petrol. Aron is a rather bizarre perpetrator. He had no previous arrest record, and the most he had been served with was an order of protection in 2007. He was twice divorced and described as quiet and socially awkward. He was given a psychiatric evaluation before his trial, which saw him given the diagnosis of adjustment disorder. He was described as being confused and apathetic, with a, quote, practically blank personality. He was also seen to be reserved and sad, but cooperative. He was further diagnosed with schizoid personality disorder. He reportedly suffered a head injury as a child, which possibly led to his extreme shyness and other behaviors. When asked why he took the boy, he simply explained, "He looked familiar, I thought I knew him." He also never referred to Yehuda Kletzi by name, and referred to the murder as the incident. Before the case went to trial in August 2012, Aron pled guilty to one charge of second-degree kidnapping and one charge of second-degree murder. This was part of a plea bargain the prosecution had worked out with his defense lawyers and involved Aron admitting his guilt to the judge. The Kletzi family supported the plea bargain, noting that they didn't want to relive the murder in court. Later that month, Aron was sentenced to 40 years to life in prison. He will be eligible for parole in 2051, though the prosecution do not believe he will ever be released. And there you have the facts. Please leave a comment with your own thoughts and reactions, and remember to like this video and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you for watching. Stay alert, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.